All right, Algebra 1, we are starting our 2-4 notes, and basically this is going to be putting together a lot of the stuff that we did in 2-2 and 2-3 with all of our factoring now. So we are going to start this off with just a factor this expression here completely. So first thing we want to do is look at our numbers and say what number can we take out of all three. So these are all divisible by 3, so we take a 3 out front. And then they all have a y, since the smallest power of y is 1 right here, we can take a y out. So our first step will be to factor out our GCF right here, and we get 3y. And then when we divide that, 3 divided by 3 is 1. Excuse me. We started with y to the third, took 1 out, we're left with y squared. 21 divided by 3 is 7. And then y squared meant we had 2 copies of y. We took 1 out, so there's still 1 left right here. And then minus 24 divided by 3 is 8. We started with a y, but we took that out. So this is just factoring out the GCF. But then we have this other step of here is a trinomial. So this is the ones where we were just doing, and we set up a table, or we should have been setting up a table, and saying we need numbers that will multiply to give us that last number and add to give us the middle number. So 8 only has 2 sets of factors, 1 and 8 and 2 and 4. 2 and 4 will get us to 6, but it won't get us to 7. So for negative 8, we're going to use negative 1 times 8. That gives us negative 8, and then negative 1 plus 8 gives us 7. So that means our factors are negative 1, so y minus 1, and a positive 8, so y plus 8. And some people were saying, well, what happens to this y squared? You know I used this 8, tried to find some numbers that got me to a 7, so I used those terms, but why didn't I do anything with this term? Well, we did do something with this term. We just didn't really say what we did with it, but basically what we did was we split it up into here. There's 2 y terms right here. Y times y gives us y squared. Okay, and then negative 1 times 8 gives us the negative 8. And then when we keep doing our multiplying the binomials or the FOIL method, that's where the middle term comes from. Okay, so just wanted to clear that up because I know there were a few questions on that. So here we go, there's the final answer for that one. Now, what we are dealing with, you can see it in the title of this notes. We are looking at algebraic fractions, or they're also called rational expressions. If you remember at the beginning of the year when we talked about rational numbers are just numbers that can be written as a fraction. So a rational expression now is a fraction that contains algebraic expressions. So there's going to be some variables here, okay? They could be in the numerator or denominator or just one or the other. But basically what we're going to do, the first thing we're going to do is factor the numerator and denominator separately, and then we cancel the common factors. But what I want to stress here is that there are 2 little side notes. First of all, they have to be exactly the same. Okay, so x plus 1 and x minus 1 would not cancel. They're not exactly the same. And then the other thing, they have to be multiplied. Okay, this is very important because a lot of times what I see is you'll end up with something like this. And then people want to say right away, well, I know 2 goes into 4, so there's a 1 and a 2, so you're left with x plus 1 over x plus 2. And that is wrong. We cannot do that because that is just canceling out over a plus sign, which means they weren't being multiplied, they were being added. Like the x plus 2 was being added, x plus 1 was being added. So they have to be multiplied. And I'll tell you I'll show you more what I mean here. With this example, we're going to go back to sometime in middle school you learned how to reduce fractions like this, right? So when you did this, what you did was you found factors of 24 that would divide into 60. So for example, if we split that up into 6 times 4, and then this would be 6 times 10, then we could cancel out the 6's. And again, this is going back to what I was just talking about in the last one. We cancel out over multiplication. Okay, so this would be, we would be left with 4 over 10, which then could simplify further because 4 is 2 times 2, and 10 is 2 times 5. So again, one more time, we could cancel out the 2's and leave us with our final answer of 2/5, okay? Now, what we did not do, okay, so this is the correct answer, right? This is good. The wrong answer, what we did not do, or what you did not do in middle school, was we didn't say, okay, well, 24 is 20 plus 4, and 60 is 20 plus 40, right? And then say, all right, well, I can cancel the 20s and leave me with 4 over 40, right? We didn't do that, okay? We looked for things that multiplied. We looked for factors that multiplied that we could divide out. Same thing when we're dealing with variables, okay? It's the exact same concept here. We're going to take this, and instead of splitting it into numerical factors, just regular numbers, we're going to split it into factors that have variables in it, okay? So same thing what we've been doing with our factoring GCFs, factoring trinomials, factoring difference of two squares, okay? It's the exact same thing, but now we're just putting it together into a fraction and simplifying that. So first thing that we want to do is we want to look at just the numerator, okay? We want to look at these separately. If I just have 12c squared, can I factor that? Well, no. The only way we're going to factor something is if there's a plus or a minus. So then let's rewrite that, 12c squared, because we can't do anything with the top. All right, so now on the denominator, let me slide my box up here so we can see just the denominator separately, okay? It's easier if you look at them separately because it makes the problem a lot easier. So 3c plus 6, what can I take out of both of those? Well, we can take a 3 out. We can't take a variable out because the 6 doesn't have a variable. So 3c, if I take out the 3, I'm left with a c, plus 6 divided by 3 is 2. Okay, now, when we simplify this, it has to be multiplied, okay? So one thing that kind of helps is to put a little dot to help you remember where the multiplication is happening, because that tells you what can be what can be simplified. I can simplify the 12 or the c squared with the 3 or the c plus 2 as a total term all by itself, not the c separately from the 2, because that was being added and not multiplied. So even though 3 goes into 12, right, 2 goes into 12, but this 2 cannot be divided into the 12 because it's being added and not multiplied. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to divide 3 goes into 12 4 times. So I'm left with 4c squared over c plus 2. Now again, if we look at where is the multiplication happening, on the numerator it's happening right here. On the denominator, there is no multiplication, so this cannot be simplified at all. So since this part can't be simplified, the whole thing can't be simplified anymore, and that is your final answer, 4c squared over c plus 2. Okay, let's do another one. Again, I'm starting out with just looking at my numerator. So what can I take out of the numerator? Well, they both can be divided by 3. Both of my numbers can be divided by 3. But here I can also take a b out because they both have a b. So what am I left with? Well, I took the 3 out, so there's just a 1. I started with b cubed, which was 3 copies. I took 1 out, so I'm left with 2 copies, or b squared, plus 3 goes into 6 2 times, so 6 divided by 3 is 2. Started with a b, but I took that b out right here. So that's done. Over, now let's see what we have here in the denominator. It's just an 18b. So since it's a single term, we cannot divide anything out. We can't, I shouldn't say it like that. We can't factor anything from 18b. Okay? So now I'm going to put my dots in. Where is the multiplication happening? Well, 3 times b and b times b squared plus 2 is one big term again. And then on the denominator, 18 times b. So hopefully doing that will show you what you are allowed to cancel. I can cancel the 3 and the 18, and I can also cancel the b's because those are being multiplied as well. So 3 divided by 3 is 1, 18 divided by 3 is 6, and then b's, if we cancel out these b's, since there's one copy in both the top and the bottom, they just cross out. Not this b here though, okay, because this would have to be the whole term, b squared plus 2. Okay, so now I look at my final answer and I say, all right, what am I left with up top? Well, b squared plus 2. You don't need the parentheses, I just like to put them there. It helps me remember that these are grouped together. And then the denominator was just a 6. Okay? And again, this is done because this b squared plus 2, there is no multiplication happening here. So we can't cancel the 2 and the 6. And I know that's a common mistake. I'm going to see it. Even though I'm giving you warnings about it over and over, I know I'm still going to see it, but it's just a common mistake. But we just have to remember, this is being added. Anytime something is being added, we can't simplify that because it's just not true. Okay, it doesn't give you the same answer. All right, C. And for today, we're just sticking with GCFs. In the 2-4A Part 2 notes that we'll do next week, those will be factoring trinomials where we do the tables and all that good stuff. So, okay, here we go. On the numerator, what can I take out? Well, they are both divisible by 3. I can't take a variable out. I can't take a variable out because 12 does not have a variable. So what am I left with? If I started with 3x, I took the 3 out. I'm left with x minus 12 divided by 3 is 4. So hopefully you can see why it was so important that you knew how to do those previous problems, because we're putting all this stuff together now. So if you couldn't do this individually by itself, putting it together with another fraction is, it's going to cause even more problems. So that's why I was stressing the importance of asking questions earlier, because now you're just even further behind if you didn't ask those questions. 15x does not simplify at all, so we're going to bring that over. I'm going to put my dots in so I know where the multiplication is happening and tell me where I can cancel. So I can divide the 3. 3 goes into 3 once. 3 goes into 15, 5. And I cannot cancel the x because the x, there's no x outside here that's being multiplied. I have an x right here that's being subtracted, but that one doesn't simplify. So 1 times x minus 4, that's just x minus 4, so I don't need to put the 1 out front. And the denominator is just a 5x. So there is your final answer for C. Let's keep moving here. All right. Again, I am ignoring the denominator. How can I simplify or factor the numerator? Well, I can't because it's just a 6a squared, so bring that over. The denominator, let's see what we have here. Look at your numbers. We got a lot of 3's here coming out. I didn't realize that. So we can divide a 3 out of both of those. 3 and 15 are both divisible by 3. We can also take an a out and say, well, what am I left with? I took the 3 out. I had a squared, which meant 2, right? That was 2 copies of a. I took 1 out. There's still 1 left in there. Put that in there. Minus 15 divided by 3 is 5. I started with an a, took that a out. I'm done. Where is the multiplication happening up here? Right there. How about down here? Well, there's 2 spots. I'll squeeze a dot in there and right there. So hopefully this will help you to see that I can divide a 3 out. 3 goes into 3 once. 3 goes into 6 twice. And then also I can take an a out. So this a will cancel out with one of these. So remember, we're subtracting the power. So 2 minus 1 gives us 1. So I'm going to cross that out and put a 1 there. All right, what am I left with up top? I had a 2, and I had 1 more copy of a left. In the denominator, the 3 was gone, the a was gone. I'm just left with a minus 5 there in parentheses. And again, this is it. All right, there is multiplication happening up top here, 2 times a, but not on the denominator. This is a subtraction, so they cannot be canceled. All right, I think we have 2 more left. I skipped over a letter. It goes from D to F. Doesn't matter. Anyway, we have 2 more left. We're going to do this one and then 1 more. And again, I didn't want to have any of these done for you because I know this is a complicated process. Some people are going to be very, very confused. That's why we're going to spend the whole week doing this stuff. So I don't want to have any of these done for you. I want to go through all of them. So first of all, what can we take out of 8 and 20? They are both divisible by 4. Smallest power for y is a y squared, so take the y squared out. What am I left with? 8 divided by 4 is 2. I started with y to the 3rd. I took out 2 of the y's, y squared, so I'm left with y, plus 20 divided by 4 is 5. I started with y squared. I took y squared out. No more y's. Over, let me see, what am I left with on the denominator? 12y squared, again, it's a single term, so there's nothing to factor out there. We're just going to recopy that. Put my dots in. Let's see, where are we multiplying? Right there and right there up top, and on the bottom right there. So what cancels? First of all, let's look at our variables. See, they both have a y squared. Get rid of them. They're the same. If we cancel them out, we would have y to the 0, which is 1. 4 goes into 4 once, and it goes into 12 3 times. So what am I left with? Well, up top, the 4 and the y squared are gone, so I just have the 2y plus 5. And on the bottom, I have a 3. The y squared was gone, so just a 3. So there's your final answer. All right, last one here. Last one, stick with me for one more here. The numerator is simplified. It's one term. Actually, I'm going to put this down below here just so I don't run out of space, because I know the denominator had a lot of stuff going on in there. All right, 10m, that's on the numerator, okay? Move this up here. Let's see what we have on the denominator. What can we take out? Look at our numbers. Well, I could take a 2 out, and I can also take an m out. I'm left with m squared, right? 2 came out. M to the third, I took one of those m's out. I'm left with m squared. Minus 4 divided by 2 is 2. M squared, I took one m out, so I'm left with an m. Minus 48 divided by 2 is 24. I started with an m, but I took it out, so no more m's. Now, this denominator actually does simplify further. Okay, so we're going to do that here, even though it factors further, but it doesn't simplify further. So this will be like our lead-in to what we're going to do next week in the next set of notes. So 2m. Now, let's write this as our two factors. So what two numbers will multiply to give me negative 24 and add to give me negative 2? So if you think about that for a second, negative 6 times 4 is negative 24. Negative 6 plus 4 gives you negative 2. Okay, so m minus 6, m plus 4. All right. Now, where is the multiplication happening? Up top, between the 10 and the m. On the bottom, between the 2 and the m in the parenthesis, and then also leading into what we're going to be doing in the next set of notes right there, those are being multiplied. Remember, the two sets of parentheses right next to each other means that they are multiplied. All right, what can we divide out? Well, 2 goes into 2 once, and 2 goes into 10 5 times. And then m divided by m, get rid of both of those, they're gone. But then this m minus 6, m plus 4, it does not simplify any further. So we'll leave those the way that they are, but I did want to show you that it does factor further. And that's what we want to do first, is factor completely. So our denominator, the numerator, we were just left with 5. The denominator, 2 and m, were both gone. So we're left with m minus 6, m plus 4. Final answer, and we are done. All right, so again, I know, like I said, this may have been one of the more challenging sets of notes that you've seen, and it may be one of the most difficult ones all year. So if you are not sure about this, watch it again. Ask me questions. You know, just make sure that you're not just sitting there and not asking questions, because all of this factoring stuff will be on your quiz Friday, and it's all things that you need to be able to do. So please let me know if you have any questions, and you know, send me an email or private comment, and I will answer them and get back to you.